Now, there we go. Welcome to Meet the Firms Week, everybody. We are so glad to have everyone on the call. This is the fourth Meet the Firms Week. We started it in October of 2012, and we are thrilled that you are here. We do this for students, and we do it because we want students who major in accounting to understand all of the career information that is necessary to launch a phenomenal career. We're so glad that you all attended, and I like to kick these off by finding out a little bit about you and where you're from. And if you've done one of these before, you probably know I'm about to ask you, but on your panel there, on the side of your screen, I'd like you to type in what school you're from. So I'd like to see where everybody's calling in from today. While you're doing that, just press your school and hit enter. I'm calling from Pensacola, Florida, where we had a winter storm last week. It was 19 degrees, and our power was shut down. So that was very un-Florida-like. It's back to normal. It's like 65 degrees. Now, here we go. Thanks for everybody for signing in. We've got people from University of Rochester, UW, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, Monroe College, Fresno State, Michigan State, Mississippi College, University of Iowa, University of Texas at Austin. I used to live in Austin, Hook 'em Horns. From Calgary, Canada, from Fordham in Manhattan, University of Southern Cal, UNC Charlotte, Northern Virginia Community College, University of Oklahoma, University of Tennessee, Kennesaw State, University of Hawaii, I'm jealous, and UNLV. Cool. It's fun to see where everybody's calling in from, and we really appreciate that you're here today. Meet the Firms Week. So a couple of housekeeping items. Hopefully by now you've been on collegefrog.com, you've built your profile, you've put in a resume, and you have updated all your career information. That's important because employers are searching for students for internships and entry-level jobs, and we want to make sure they find you. Having a resume on College Frog increases the likelihood that an employer will contact you by over 100%. It's very important. If you ever have questions, if you have issues with our site, please email us at support@collegefrog.com. I want to thank a couple of very important sponsors, like today's presenter, Wiley CPAexcel, of course, Deloitte, the Association for Chartered Certified Accountants, the Wiley Organization, Accounting Fly, Boomer Consulting, and the Association for Accounting Marketing, and the Association of Accounting Administration. These groups are the reasons why we have this event. They are the reason why we're able to distribute your profile and your resume to all employers in your state, and why we're able to have phenomenal speakers like the one you're about to hear. So let's talk about today's sponsor, Wiley CPAexcel. We've gotten to know the team from Wiley CPAexcel, and they are hands down the leader in terms of being the most effective and most affordable test prep service that's on the market today. So you're in for a real treat today. Students have told me that Wiley CPAexcel's bite-sized lessons and the way that they teach a lesson and then assess for mastery for every concept of the CPA exam has been a phenomenal resource, and not to mention it is a really affordable price. We love this product, and we love the team from CPAexcel. And we're going to talk about the CPA exam. I don't have to explain to you why it's important, because we're all going to have to take it in order to have a successful career in public accounting especially. But what we're going to talk about today is why it's important to take it now. What's the process you should have to have a winning game plan? I want you to leave today with absolute confidence that you can pass this thing, and that you know a good game plan on how to do it. On hand, we have a team from Wiley CPAexcel, and they're here to answer your questions. So as Mike is presenting, make sure that you're asking questions about the CPA exam. I'm not a CPA. I won't be answering the questions. But Julie Snow, who's the Senior Marketing Manager with Wiley, will be on hand to answer your questions. Leslie Ann Rogers advises all the international students for Wiley CPAexcel. She's on hand to answer your questions, as is Vanessa Cook, who is the Manager for Customer Service and Technical Support, and Jeff Johnson, who's a Regional Director with the CPAexcel. You'll be seeing their names as they answer your questions. We'll have 20 minutes for Q&A towards the end of the call, so I'll be asking Mike questions as well. And lastly, I want to introduce Mike Duffy, then I'm going to get out of the way. Mike is the Senior Vice President of CPAexcel Review, where he has responsibility for product and business development for all the CPA Review products. Mike's an accountant. He began his career at PwC Audit after he graduated from Western University. Before he was at CPAexcel, Mike was the National Program Director for Convisor Duffy CPA Review for 15 years and the Director of Marketing for Convisor CPA Review for 5 years. I'm sorry, for Becker Convisor for 5 years. Mike currently serves on the Beta Alpha Psi Advisory Forum and the Western Illinois University Advisory Board, and Mike is lucky enough to live in San Diego, California. Mike, I'm done. It's all you. We're thrilled to have you here. We can't wait to hear what you have to say, sir. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. First off, I just want to make a point of clarification. I think when he described that I was around for 15 years, that wasn't 50. It was 15 running of the program. But as you can see from my picture, it's been a few years since I actually sat for the exam. But the reality is the thrill of passing the CPA exam, literally, it's as fresh today as it was the day I passed. And just a very brief, cute story. It was my brother way back then. I was working at Price Waterhouse, and I received a phone call that I had passed the exam. And I said, "Did you open up my results?" And he said, "No." He said, "It was a really thin envelope, and you said if you passed, you'd probably get a thin envelope." So my heart's throbbing. He opens it up. Lo and behold, I do pass the exam. And everybody shares in that excitement as well. So that evening when I arrived home, he had a big garbage can in the living room. It had a big CPA exam garbage can with all my books stuffed in it. So it is really not only thrilling for you, not only are you smarter and worth more money, but your family and everybody is really excited for you as well, and your life can return a little bit to normal. So once again, I encourage you all to pursue that goal very, very aggressively. So with that, we're going to jump in here and start talking a little bit about the CPA exam. But let's just jump through a few topics I'd like to cover. I'd like to talk about number one, should you take the exam? I think you're going to probably know that my answer to that is absolutely. Talk a little bit about your plan itself. I get a lot of questions from students over the year with regard to the exam sequence, so I'd like to address that. Some test-taking strategies, things you need to be aware of when you go in and actually sit. What I consider my key suggested study approaches. Literally exam site strategies. It's quite different than the old days where you walked into a giant auditorium with 3,000 people sitting in there. You're now going to a really controlled testing environment, which is apprometric. So with that, let's talk a little bit about taking the CPA exam. I kind of look at this similar to somebody who's gone to law school, and to not actually sit for the bar exam. It seems like really quite a bit of time and energy you put into a very difficult subject to not really take full advantage of the credentials you can get becoming a CPA. Not only is it a financially more rewarding career, estimates have it that you make literally more than $1 million over your career. Personally, from folks I know, I'd say it's considerably more than that. Instant credibility if somebody is talking to you and interviewing you as you're moving from job to job, which all of you will do. It's quite nice to be able to say you're also a CPA. They know it's given them a benchmark as to your ability in the subject area, and so they really needn't have to doubt you on that, and it's just a real big plus on your resume. Interestingly, a lot of students that I come across say, well, you know, Mike, I'm not really going to sit for the exam. I'm planning on working for the government, or I'm planning to go in straight into corporate. I'm really not interested in doing that public accounting route. Well, it's kind of interesting. I worked at Price Waterhouse initially, and in public accounting, obviously you have to become a CPA in order to continue to move up the ladder. On the other side, when I moved over to the corporate environment, which I was in a corporate controller for several years, it's interesting how I chose candidates who I wanted to work in my department for me. And my first area that I looked at was, are they a CPA? Not necessarily licensed to sign opinions, but have they passed the CPA exam? So in public, it is a requirement that you do it to stay there, but in corporate, I'd say it's even more important than in the public arena. So don't use that as an excuse. You know, do it right now when you're young and you're going through your schooling. Just make sure you get that CPA out of the way ASAP. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a plan. Now, the reason I talk about a plan, this really doesn't have to do with just the CPA exam. It's something I learned many, many years ago, and it had to do with all phases of your life, from your spiritual, your social, your economic, and your career, that the reason we tend to fail is we have no plan. It really is that simple. So I want to talk a little bit about that process. Once again, why do we fail? Fail to plan. So where did I learn all this? Well, this actually happened some 15 years ago. And it's a very interesting study. It comes out of Harvard many, many years ago. So this drops probably about 35 years ago. And what they did is they did a study of the Harvard graduates, and they wanted to see how many of them actually had written goals and written plans. And what they ended up tracking over a 30-year period is that 3% of the graduates from Harvard that year actually had written goals. And when they tracked them 30 years later, they found out that that 3% was worth in financial terms what the remaining graduating class, the remaining 97%, was worth. So it's really an interesting study that just gets down to the basics of, in life, you have to simply have a plan, and not just, once again, for school or your career. It's literally down to every level, including your spiritual and other goals as well. So the final note I have here on the screen is really important, and that is, planning for success is much better than stumbling to failure. And it's really funny, there was a study done also that found out that people spent more time planning for a party than they have spent planning their entire career. So I encourage you to sit back and literally put down and write a paragraph for each area of your life, just a paragraph, on what you want to achieve. And once you start that process of writing down a goal, you're going to get there. Given that I've been involved in the CPA exam world, I actually took this model of planning, and I started looking at accounting students. And I said, well, it's kind of funny. We've all gone through our grammar school, our high school, and even college where we've actually never taken a time management class. And I looked at that and said, well, this isn't really the time I want to teach you that. So what I introduced into our program is literally an exam planner. This takes you through that formal process of putting, say, a beginning date when you're going to study for the exam. As you see here on the screen, it says, oh, I'm going to start on this date, and here's when I'm going to sit for the exam. And then the planner literally generates a schedule for you that says, okay, it's going to take you 14 weeks to get to your goal of passing the exam when you have actually said you're going to do it. And once we have a written goal, there is just no excuse for not getting there. The only problem you're going to run into is when you have that written goal, it's, I'm not keeping up with my written plan. As a result, I'm probably not going to pass. So one of the keys that I've used in my world of education and training over the last 25 years is incorporating things I've learned, which include the importance of a planner. Now, talking a little bit more about the exam.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike, it's Jeff. I'm sorry for cutting you off there. Real quick, I think you're advancing your slides, but we're not. We're only seeing your title slide, and that's a GoToWebinar issue. So I'm going to quickly ask you to. There you go. You're in it. Are you okay? So are you on the suggested study times slide?
Yes, but it's locking unless. Oh.
There we go. Okay.
Is that working now?
No, it's working now. We just got some questions across the wire, and it looks like we're back on track. So I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, so did they not see the slides I was showing them on planning?
They did not see the slides on planning, right.
Okay, I'm just going to jump back very quick to show them what I was speaking of. So this, once again, I speak about planning, and this is where I've incorporated it into my entire world of certification and exam preparation, where students enter their date when they're going to sit for the exam and start studying, and then that generates a number of hours per week. And that's what I was speaking of, is incorporating the importance of a plan into the process of preparing for and passing the exam. So another question I get all the time is, how much time do I really need to put into this process? So with that in mind, this is my summary of what I believe is a good number that you can use in order to effectively prepare for the exam. Remember, our goal is to get through this exam the first time you're sitting for it, and I believe it's absolutely doable. But If you look here, financial accounting and reporting, we have 130, auditing about 80 hours, regulation 110, and BEC around 70 hours. So when you're planning your process of preparation, make sure you're going to allow yourself about that much time in order to effectively prepare for the exam. Another question that we get a lot of students asking us is, well, we have all these various jurisdictions, and how many hours do I need to sit? And we have thrown this up just to give you a little bit of a perspective. As you can see here, you have, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Delaware, and you see 3 of the 4 here. You have to sit. In order to sit, you have to have 150 hours. Delaware, no. Then accounting hours needed, 30 in Texas, 24 in Louisiana, and 21 graduate. The reason I throw this up there is I want to make it clear to you that although it is the uniform CPA exam, the requirements to sit in the various jurisdictions is not uniform. So in order to make sure you are properly prepared for the exam and you have met the requirements of that particular state, make sure you go to, and we have the website there, nasba.org/exams/CPA exam, and that'll provide you all of the information with regard to the states in which you're planning on sitting for. And if NASBA does not have it, you can go directly to that state, and they'll provide you information as to their specific requirements. Now, let's talk a little bit about the content spec outline or skills specifications outline. The reason I popped this up on the screen is just to give you kind of an overview as to the 4 parts of the exam that you're going to have to deal with. And when I'm looking here, I see auditing attestation. You have 6 major categories in which the examiners break up the content. BEC, on the right-hand side, we have about 7. Financial accounting and reporting is broken into 5 major categories, and regulation on the lower right quadrant of the screen is 6. Now, in our college classes, we've covered the vast majority of the topics in which the exam will be covering. But there is a few areas that I'd like to point out for you that are not necessarily required by the various universities' curriculum. So for instance, in FAR, as you see the governmental accounting and not-for-profit section, that can range anywhere from 8 to 12 on each of those sections, or a grand total of 16 to 24%, almost 1/4 of the exam could potentially be on governmental and not-for-profit accounting. And your curriculum, some universities don't even require that you take a governmental class. So as you're planning your final semesters, if you have an opportunity to take that class and it's not required, I'd strongly suggest that you do so. Another area in the regulation area that I think is important is, tax comprises 40% or 60% of that section of the regulation exam. And many times colleges only require you to take, say, an individual tax class. And as you can see here from the categories of taxation, you have a significant section down in federal taxation entities. 18 to 24% is taxation of entities, corporates, partnerships, etc. So in those 2 specific areas, I really encourage you, if you have not had classes related to those, do yourself a favor and try to get classes in taxation and governmental under your belt before you graduate and are starting to prepare for the exam. Having said that, of course, it's part of our job as a preparation company. We provide you with all that guidance and information, but once again, in my opinion, it's good to have those classes from a college perspective. So let's talk a little bit about the CPA exam scoring. It's different than the old days. It used to be a 75 pass and a 69 you failed, and they showed you nothing in between. And now it actually will show you a 74, which is really, really brutal. So you literally could have missed the exam by 1 question, and you're going to see a score of 74. So basically our goal is 75 is, indicates the minimum level of competency that the profession is expecting of you to enter the practice. The unique thing about the CPA exam environment that was not the way it was in the past is that you can pass just 1 section at a time. So it does allow you to really spend the appropriate amount of time and really focus on a subject in order to pass that section. Now, the other thing which is new is over the last few years, you can pass all 4 parts within an 18-month period. That's what you're required to do. And when you pass your first section, that's when the 18-month clock begins to roll. Now, some people have expressed concern over that, and I'm here to tell you that once you pass the one part, 18 months is more than adequate, and the vast majority of the students that we prepare usually get through within a year. So 18 months should be more than adequate for you to prepare and pass the exam. Let's talk a little bit about some registration tips. This really gets down to when you are applying for the exam, you're going to get what's known as an NTS, a notice to schedule. And really what I encourage people to do is really only register for the parts that you're planning to prepare for in the next 6 months. I suggest the registration for 2 parts, which gives you a little flexibility because you can always add the other parts on as you move through the process. The other thing is estimating the time it takes to receive your notice to schedule. The notice to schedule will come out, but it's really tricky. Some of these states, when you register, they're literally communicating to you back in days that you're okay, you can now go submit your information to Prometric and actually schedule your exam. Others are taking literally 6 to 8 weeks. So I just encourage you to make sure that you're taking into account potentially the long-term window of 6 to 8 weeks, and that way if your ability of your various state is shorter, you're just going to give yourself a little more time in which to prepare for the exam. The next part of that planning process really comes in with the windows. As you can see here, January through February is active. Then we have what's called dark months, so those here are here in red, so you can't sit during those windows. So once again, when going through that preparation and planning process, you need to make sure you take into account the closed windows. You don't want to start studying, say, in the middle of May, and you'd be ready to sit for auditing in the middle of June, and suddenly you have to wait until the July window. So make sure you take that into account as well. You could sit for literally all 4 sections in each window, but the only caveat is you can't sit for the same part twice in one window. So you can't sit January 5th and fail the exam and get a notice within 10 days and then attempt to re-register. So that is the only restriction with regard to how many sections you can take within a given window. Okay, here I'm just showing you a little visual. This is what the form looks like when you receive it back. Your notice to schedule, your NTS. This provides you all the information you need to schedule with Prometric and request the sitting window that you would like to get. Just a little visual of that document. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the actual structure of the exam, the format. And as you see here, across the top we have Audit, BEC, FAR, and REG, and they range between 3 and 4 hours a section. I think the interesting thing to note here is that your audit, FAR, and regulation sections are comprised of 60% multiple choice, okay? And you look down in the written communication for those 3 parts, and it's all 0. So the real key for audit, FAR, and regulation is 60% is multiple choice, and the balance, 40%, is what we call task-based simulations, which they're kind of what I'd call a long problem, but designed in a computer environment to allow students to work through those questions without actually hand writing the information. We'll go over that in just a minute. And the other unique section that we're looking at here, as you can see, is BEC, which has 85% are multiple choice and 15% are written communication, of which you will be given 3 written essays or questions that you're required to communicate in writing. Now, the interesting thing about that, if I could just give one note on written communications, they usually cause students difficulty in that the topics they throw at you also are including some type of technical content, but the real objective of those written essays is not so much the technical content, but making sure you're writing in proper English, business language, proper communications, and that your writing and your spelling is accurate. So some students get concerned because I've heard students getting a written communication question in BEC that has to do with pensions, even though pensions are covered in financial accounting and reporting. So it's more of a understanding of what the objective of that written communication is so that you don't panic and you can take advantage of the points that you need to take advantage of. Now, One of the other things with regard to the format, it's critical that you always practice in a simulated environment. This is just a quick screenshot of our software where literally as they go through the exam planner, this is what I described to you earlier, this is their actual exam plan, and at the end of that plan is taking a simulated exam a week or two before you're actually going into the exam. So that is one of the key elements, is generate those exams, practice that environment as often as you can toward the end of your preparation process. So when you walk into the exam center, this is absolutely something you're familiar with, you're comfortable with. It's in the AI-CPA Prometric exam format, and you're going to take a 4-hour test, and it's not something that you're going to say, what is this? You know, this is going to be something that's second nature to you when you go into the exam center itself. Just a little bit of a view here. This is kind of the screen that Prometric will use for multiple choice. It's not a very exciting screen, but this is how they do it. They give you, time allocation, and here you have to select your answers and move on. These are multiple choice. This is a sample of what we call the task-based simulation. So in here, there's a combination of things they can do. They can ask you to do research, and you have to go into your research tools and find the correct pronouncements on which to record where the information can be found in our professional literature. There's also these options where they give you the answers. You literally just have to click the right one. So it's what we kind of call, it's a little bit different of a multiple choice, but nonetheless, it does have that same approach. So those are task-based simulations, which once again are included in all the professional courses programs to make sure that you're really prepared for the exam when you go in there. Okay, next big one that I like to talk about is exam sequence. I like to go here with something I call the big rock theory, once again something I learned many years ago, and that is if you address the big rock, which is your hardest, most challenging item that you have on your plate, that you're going to do pretty well, but you need to get the hard one done first. And I note here, I call it the exception BEC. Well, the reason I have that as an exception is BEC is a very unusual section of the exam. As you know, it covers a lot of strange subjects that are disconnected from managerial accounting to planning and budgeting to IT, number of different topics, and it's also 85% multiple choice and 3 written essays. Now, here is why I call this the exception. I encourage students to actually wait for BEC for their last section. 2 reasons for that. Number one is, as I explained earlier, the essays that normally appear in BEC come from subject matter that you might find in auditing and financial accounting and reporting. So if you've at least done your preparation for those other sections and have passed, then you're now moving into BEC. When those essays pop up, you'll be at least familiar with those topics because you've studied for them in the last 6 or 9 months. And also, you won't let the technical side of the question overtake what actually is being done when they're grading the essays, which is your writing and communication skills. So I encourage you to do it. Secondly, the BEC section happens to have normally the highest pass rate on the exam. So when I say big rock theory, you take the toughest subjects first, and then at the end of that process, remember your 18-month window's rolling, so you want to get the toughest rock out of the way so that the last rock that you have to play with is BEC, and that has a higher pass rate anyhow. So let's jump into pass rates and talk about some important things with regard to pass rates and pre-test questions. So as I was speaking earlier, and this is a perfect example of the pass rate information. As you see, let's take a look at BEC, that second line. 53, 55, or 6, 58. The cumulative for the year is almost 56% are passing that section. So that's once again why I encourage you to wait toward the end in order to take that BEC section. But the good news is the pass rates have stabilized. In prior years, they were less, and they are continuing to improve, so it's good to see that the exam itself has stabilized. And this is something I would expect to see as pass rates floating in that 50 percentile range. So that's good news. Once again, the next important area on the CPA exam that we need to talk about, even though you get a 50% pass rate, let's talk about some really, really important things here. And that is, on this sheet here, I've laid out the layout of the CPA exam itself. So you see there's operational, pre-test, and total. So if we look at auditing, there are 90 multiple choice questions, of which 15 are pre-test and 17 are operational. So I'm going to move here to another slide because I really want to highlight the importance of what we're talking about here. When you take the CPA exam and you go in and sit for auditing, you are going to see that there will be 90 multiple choice questions. And the interesting thing when you look at that is 15 of those 90 are pre-test and are not even going to be graded. So when you're sitting there working through your questions and you come across questions that are unusual or something you're just not familiar with, that should really make some sense that that is probably a pre-test question. So as you look across the 4 sections here, even move over to regulation and BEC, as you can see, 12 of the 72 questions are not even going to be impacting the grade that you get on the exam. It's kind of amazing to me when I look at it and say, so I've gone through regulation and I've studied taxation and law, and the decision is boiled down to roughly 72 questions on the multiple choice side, and then something we call task-based simulations, 6 of those on the bottom side of this equation. And the answer to that is yes, it is. So the importance of understanding the concept of pre-test questions is really there for you. So when you sit for the exam and you're working through questions and you run into those questions that you say, wait, I've gone to college, I've taken the CPA review preparation program, and I'm still not even vaguely familiar with this topic, or there sure is a lot of strange questions they're asking in this area, there's a good chance that that is pre-test type questions. So let me talk a little bit about exam site strategies. I know we always have a pretty tight time frame when we do these talks, so we have to move a little quicker than I'd like sometimes, but let's talk about exam site strategies. Now, when you sit down, one of the things students experience the most that come back and I speak to is they say, you know, the mistake I made is I took the full amount of allocated time for my multiple choice questions, and the task-based simulations, those are the ones that really kind of require a little more thought, are a little more unique in their layout. So I always encourage students as they go through the process of preparing to absolutely allocate the minimum time to the multiple choice question part of the exam. Now, the next key item after you've done that is I want to talk about what I call a case study. And this is what you might experience on the exam. And when the exam first kicked off, I talk to students frequently after the testing that they've gone through. And once again, it's just to get their insights as to the experience and what they encountered. And it continues to, I continue to hear the same type of scenario appearing. And this is for your knowledge, so when you sit for the exam and if you experience this, you understand what's happening. So you're given an exam where you're getting your first 3 testlets, right? So 3 testlets of, say, 30 questions are popping up. And you work through your first 30, and you work through all those, and you feel quite confident. Literally, you're sitting there going, boy, there's only 1 or 2 I really was not that certain of. And then you go and you move into your next testlet. Well, you open up that testlet, and all of a sudden you're sitting there, say you're in financial accounting and reporting, and I've heard this from students where they said, I had so many international financial reporting type questions, and 2 things are happening here. Number 1, if you experience that when you're in your second testlet and you get this large percentage of questions, say in international financial reporting, understand this, that the questions that they are going to be grading have to match up with the content specification outline. And in the area, say, including international subjects, you know, that percentage is relatively small. So the odds are you've done extremely well on the first set of multiple choice questions, and now what they're doing is they're just throwing a pile of pre-test questions at you, and it can be covering an area such as international accounting. And it can also be focusing on another area. So if you see this occur, don't panic. It means you're doing probably extremely well on your test. And I've actually talked to students afterward to find out what their grade was, and many of those that experienced this exact scenario were scoring in the 90% range, yet got panicked when they started seeing this group of questions they weren't familiar with. So always remember that 15 out of the 90 are pre-test and they're not being graded. So you have to just make sure you keep your cool as you're moving through it. So real important for you to be aware of that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Prometric. Once again, this is a completely different environment than any of us had in the past. You're going to walk into the Prometric Testing Center, and there's several things you have to be tied into, and that is, two types of ID, your passports, your driver's license, other forms of legal identification. They're going to literally give you a locker. The next thing is biometric check-ins with photo identification, fingerprints. And this isn't just one fingerprint. It's literally if you walk in and you start your exam and you walk out to the washroom, you're rescanned as you go in. So the security is extremely tight. You're going to have to empty your pockets. There's metal detectors to check you to make sure you're not bringing in anything inappropriate. And I kind of laugh at this shot here because this is literally what you have to do is pull all of your pockets inside out before you go into the testing room. So they're pretty serious about it, and so I guess if you can avoid having one with excessive pockets, I'd do that. Rules and regulations in the exam room. No pencils, no paper. They're going with something called note boards. So once again, this is different than what you're preparing for as you go along, but the note boards are self-explanatory in the room. When you need additional note boards, you can get access to those. Time allocated on the exam is another little interesting caveat. They will give you 30 minutes of instruction time in that preparation to get ready for the exam. So there's instructions and surveys that you have to complete. So just be very mindful that you need to get through those 30 minutes, and that really isn't part of the exam. That's allocated strictly to those instructions and to the survey. Your exam will still stand at the 4 hours or 3 hours, depending on the actual section that you're sitting for. So let's talk just a few thoughts that I have here as we kind of narrow in on our time allotment for this. I want to talk a little bit about a study approach. I think I made it pretty clear to everybody it's really important to follow a plan. There's nothing that replaces that, and if there's one thing it does tell you, if you're following that plan and you realize you're not staying up with the plan, you already know you're in trouble, so you really need to use that as your guiding light. The next is to make sure you work all questions in the exam format. This to me is really critical, that you're getting used to the interface that you're going to see at Prometric, and work, as I say, work multiple choice questions until you're blue in the face. That is the repetition of working questions is actually a learning technique in and of itself. So don't think that you're memorizing questions. I hear students saying that all the time, but the reality is when we're looking at our database, which has 6,000 to 7,000 questions sitting out there, I really have a hard time believing you can memorize that many questions. So keep working questions. The next is really take that full practice exam. You've heard it all the time. How you do in practice, you do in the game, and it's really important to take the full simulated exam, so that you're literally sitting in a room by yourself going through a 4-hour or 3-hour exam, and getting the sense of what that feels like and the timing as you're working through the questions. So I really encourage you to make sure that you take multiple practice exams before you actually go in. And by the way, taking those exams, I hope that whatever tool you use for the exam prep itself is at least coming back and summarizing that simulated exam and saying, okay, here's where you were strong, here's where you were weak, here's the additional areas that you need to work out to make sure you're ready for the exam. So with that, one more final thought, and this is really clear to me. The pass rates, I showed you those, in the upper 40% and the mid 50 percentile range for BEC. And you've gone through an entire college curriculum, right? So you've learned a lot of this material at a much more detailed level than you're going to need for the exam itself. So feel confident in your college classes that you have taken, with the exception of what I described earlier in the talk, which was making sure that you have that governmental section covered and that you have things such as federal taxation entities covered as well. So those are big parts of the test. The next final component of that whole process is the guidance from the preparation programs that you should be pursuing. A lot of students in the past would say, I'm going to give it a shot on my own. I'm going to grab a set of books. I'm just going to kind of read through those and just see how I do on it. You know, the reality is this isn't a test you want to see how you do on it. This is a test you want to prepare for properly, that you have, you know, multimedia video presentations, question databases, metrics analysis, mentors, you know, that you can ask questions of. This is too important of a process to leave it to, I'm going to see what it's like. I can tell you what it's like. You know, sit in a room for 4 hours and take a test and be frustrated by questions. That's what the exam is like. So make sure that you take the steps necessary to have the proper course that will assist you in that preparation process as well. So with that, before I depart and turn this back over to Jeff, I would just like to make sure that students out there, I've had this question last time I gave this in the fall. They were curious, well, how much does the course like this cost that you're involved with? And for our normal program, which is around $1,800 in the retail market, students get a price of $1,440. We do talk about pass rates there, and this is our documented pass rate, 6-year average. And what we do there is we really want to see the percentage of students on the parts they're taking, the parts they're passing, and so that's what we're experiencing. National average I have here at 47. That's also kind of a 6-year cum. But you saw earlier it was like 47 and 8s in the other 3 sections and 55 now in BEC. So this is the student pricing that we make available to you, and it is a one-time price, and until you pass the exam, we're here for you with updates and whatnot until you pass. So with that, I'm going to now turn this back over to Jeff. This is my email. If you have any specific questions you'd like to email me, feel free to do so, and I'll be happy to reply to you as well. So with that, Jeff.
Mike, thank you so much. So we, you probably don't know this, Mike, but we have had a ton of questions that our team is answering. Students, if you haven't had your question answered yet, it will be. Just hang tight. And there's a few that I thought we would just bring up into the conversation. But real quick, Mike, you mentioned the price and the service that you offer. I thought it'd be a good time real quick to bring up the offer that you guys are giving everybody on the webinar today. Is that okay if I tell them about what you guys are offering?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, two things. And this is specifically for College Frog members and Meet the Firms Week students. And I'm going to be sending out an email, or actually that'll be coming out first thing in the morning with links to all of these. But this is really exciting. So anyone who's on the call is going to get 14-day free trial access to the Wiley CPAexcel Video Gold Medal course. So that's 2 weeks of online access to video lectures, study text, former or past CPA exam questions with rationales for the answers, with task-based simulations, and flashcards, or online flashcards, that is. There's no commitment to this, and I'll send you a link that'll come from the GoToWebinar to start that free trial. And also, for any participants in Meet the Firms Week, you can save $100 instantly on the Video Gold Medal course. I will be sending you a discount code specific for Meet the Firms participants that can be used on top of Wiley CPAexcel's current offer. So definitely take a look at that. Be looking for an email that will come out tomorrow for that. It's already a remarkable product at a great price for the students, Mike, so you guys offering even more discounts to College Frog members is really appreciated. We thank you guys for your partnership there.
Oh, it's great.
Awesome.
Do it.
Okay, so I'm going to try to jump into some of these questions because we've got a few, Mike, and that was a great presentation. I want to ask, this is from, I believe, a student who is an international student. He said, when you talk about the regulations, you mentioned that you need 2 types of ID. I'm an international student, so can I provide my passport and my I-20 form if I don't get a driver's license? And then that reminds me, for Julie and LA and Vanessa and Jeff, you guys go ahead and unmute your phones. You might want to jump in and answer some of these questions. But Mike, do you know the answer to this question? If not, I can certainly ping.
Oh yeah, I'd love Leslie Ann to jump in on this component. She's our international student advisor.
Yes, candidates would need to show their passport and one other form of government ID. So if you don't have a driver's license, you'd need one more piece of government or official identification. And you want to make sure that your name is the same on all the documents that you are sending, because it can be quite confusing often with internationally educated students. When they get their transcripts evaluated, they're using one name, and then their IDs have a slightly different name on them. So just make sure that they're all the same.
I think that's a really important point that Leslie Ann brought up. It has to be, including a driver's license. You know, my name is Michael J. Duffy. Well, my license actually says Joseph. So when you fill out your application, you have to make sure it's going to match your official identification.
Yeah.
And before I ask the next question, for Jeff, Jeff Johnson, you've received most of the questions today. You're probably very busy answering them, but if there's any that you felt like were ones that you would like Mike to answer to the whole group, definitely jump in. I'm going to try to field a couple more. But Mike, I saw this question a couple times just on costs to take the exam. Not cost for the test prep, but just for the exam itself. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, if Jeff Johnson's on right now, I'd let him do it. He's been involved in a number of different states, so he may be able to give a little insight into the ranges.
Yeah, to actually take the CPA exam, depending on the jurisdiction you're applying it, they'll usually charge you somewhere between $50 to $150 to submit your application. And then every time you take the exam, you have to pay for that individual section, which will cost you somewhere between $225 to $300. If you take auditing and you fail it, unfortunately, you're going to have to pay the $225 to $300 again if you take it a second time.
Got it.
And that fee is to Prometric, correct, Jeff?
The exam fee goes to the Prometrics Testing Center, correct. The application fee obviously goes to your jurisdiction.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Mike, I may help you with this question too, but I've gotten this 4 or 5 times. Is getting the CPA exam going to help the people on the call be more employable, more attractive to employers, even if they do not have specific accounting experience?
Oh, absolutely. It's really funny you ask that, and that's why I say when you're, going to work for a company, having a CPA is absolutely, one of the key advantages, even if you're not working in public accounting. And it even goes a step further than that. It's, in my career, if I look back at the group of folks I sat for the exam with, many of them went off into their own businesses, literally a gas station, oil change service. One of my friends opened up 4 or 5 of those. And just having the CPA going in, meeting with banks to get financing for his company, I mean, the CPAexcel, not only helps you from an employment from any type of company, it also is a asset to you when you're looking at starting perhaps a business of your own. You can add into that, Jeff, if you'd like.
Mike, just absolutely would agree with you there that having the credential is very important to the recruiters that you're going to deal with. I've heard recruiters say that having the exam and pass the exam overcomes a lot of sins committed during college as well if you have low GPA or not a lot of experience. So it's critical into this field. Mike, people are responding a lot to the concept of big rocks, and I love that. Which section to you is the biggest rock? And what the student is asking is, what do you think the hardest section is that should be tackled?
Well, I think that the most difficult part is financial accounting and reporting, strictly because of the volume of material and the fact that there's that heavy weighting, as I showed earlier, on the governmental and not-for-profit section, which can be 20% of the test. So I personally prefer to get that out of the way, because when I look at the remaining 4 sections, auditing is it's really just reading through and understanding concepts. When you look at regulation, the similar thing, you're looking at law, So you're looking at concepts and understanding basic law structure. And then you're looking at taxation, which is based on very clear and defined rules. So once again, so I like to look at those as a very different way of being tested. And then a BEC, like I said, it's BEC's, its passing percent is higher, and I think primarily because there are so many topics in there, and they can only dig so deep in there that it's really kind of more surfacey type questions in IT and project management and planning. But once again, you go back to financial accounting, and there's a lot of knowledge in computations, in financials and presentations and foreign currency hedges. You know, there's so much more there that it's best to get that one out of the way, so you're really kind of going downhill at that point in a favorable way.
Right, the good kind. Gotcha. All right, moving along here. Adam asks, I already started CPAexcel a couple of weeks ago. So any tips just for making the best use out of CPAexcel? And he's not indicating which program he's using, but thought I'd tee that one up for you.
Well, the tips I would have for him are very simple, which is, number one, make sure that you're using your integrated exam planner. You know, make sure that you're following that to a T, indicate your start date and your sitting date. Because if you follow that method alone, that should do you well. I encourage him to watch the multimedia presentations because, you know, that's critical for giving you guidance that you're not going to get reading a book. You know, the faculty are kind of directing you toward these are the little tricks in the exam and this is what you might experience, so I think that's invaluable. And then the final component, as he's mentioning, is just you make sure you work every one of those questions and get a 90% or better in each one of the topics in the lesson topics. And if you do that, you know, I assure you're going to have success on the exam.
Mm-hmm. All right, good stuff. All right, and just as a reminder, we're going to keep asking Mike questions, but if you did ask a question, and there's a lot of them where we're assigning them to the CPAexcel team, and they'll be answering them as well. Mike, you asked, you mentioned about the note boards a minute ago, and there was a question, and now I've lost it. Concerning the note boards, are you talking about a plastic sheet and a marker?
Yeah. It's actually, you can go to the Prometric site, and they'll show you a little clip on the note boards that they're giving. Yeah, it's just a little, like, you know, basic board with a special marker that you're using and writing on. And then when you use those up, you have to, you know, go out and request new ones.
Got it.
But I encourage everyone to take a look at that site, so that they have a pretty good video that kind of gives you a snapshot of what you're going to be required to do when you go to the center. Yeah, by the way, one final note on that. I encourage you, when you do sit and register for the site you're going to go to, is go physically check that out on, say, if you're going to sit on a Wednesday. You know, if you can, you know, sneak out there on a Wednesday before and kind of see what parking and, you know, traffic and all the rest is around that center, so that you don't, you know, find yourself zipping over there on Wednesday morning at 10 for an 11 o'clock testing window and running into some issue you weren't anticipating. So that's just a little exercise so that you minimize stress on exam day.
Mike, how would you best prepare for the IFRS questions?
Well, let me explain first off that IFRS initially was, a couple of years ago, it was really being pushed out as this huge change in the world of our accounting. And just to be honest, the reality is it has never taken root to the level that some people were expecting. It's only, you know, touching a few areas, and even the degree of cooperation between the organizations, you know, some of those projects have literally been put on hold because there's such a, you know, there's certain differences between acceptable standards internationally and GAAP here in the U.S. When I look at those areas, they're not going to be significant. The amount of questions you're going to see are not going to be significant. It's going to be a couple here, you know, and a couple there, and it could be some base terminology or maybe something in valuations, but we cover all that in the material. So any program that is worth its weight is covering those areas. So for instance, in our content, we go through and we talk about the balance sheet, we talk about the income statement. Then there's a sub-lesson under each one of those that goes balance sheet, IFRS, balance sheet, income statement, balance sheet, footnotes, so that you realize they're in international, they're not called footnotes, they're called notes. There's different terminology and different ways to address things. Revenue recognition. So those are covered in the material, but they're not going to be a big part of it. So as long as you're studying with a professional program, you should be getting at least that base knowledge, and that's really all you need to worry about. Don't overthink that, because it's not going to cause you a problem.
Thanks, Mike. Let's see. I didn't see the PowerPoint slide showing the study times for each section. Mike, what were the recommended amounts of study time for each section again?
Okay, I'd have to repop those back. Maybe can I still have these slides active, right?
I think so, yeah. You can even get out of the presentation mode and have the thumbnails and just pick that slide back up.
I'll just fly back through it just so they can see the screen again. And this is a pretty good measurement, because in our software we're able to identify all students that have passed, and we're able to actually gather the metrics for 5,000 people and say, here's what it took on average. So this is a pretty good benchmark.
Cool. Well, I can go ahead and ask the next question then, while the people who wanted to see that again are reviewing that. All right. And hey, let's do this, everybody. It's the top of the hour. I've got a couple more questions. Mike, if you could stay on, we can ask them. If folks need to jump off, that's fine. If you're still waiting for a question to be answered, just stick around. They'll all be answered. And then, Mike, if you have an extra couple of minutes, we can keep going, okay?
Sure.
Great. Is it recommended for a student to study for 2 sections at once?
You know what? I would say the answer to that question is no. Now, I'll tell you why. Keep in mind that you're sitting to some degree in a competitive arena, and it's and ultimately the passing scores are being decided on a window-by-window basis. As you saw from my previous slide, the percents can range quite a bit. So in other words, if you're trying to study for auditing and regulation at the same time, and somebody else is only studying for auditing, they're putting their full effort and emphasis on auditing. So they are just going to be so well prepared for that section, and you don't want to come in and be half prepared because you're also working on another section at the same time. So that's my simple explanation of focus on one and get it done.
Mike, can you take it multiple times, and are the scores recorded every time you take it?
Yeah, you can take it. The only exception is you can't take it in the same window. So, for instance, they release the grades, I believe it's now 3 times a window. So the first, I believe it's 15 days of the window, they're releasing those, and they're coming out within a week after those tests are taken. So if you sat January 4th and you got a notice that you didn't pass on January 20th, you can't resit in the same window. But you can take it in subsequent windows. So that's allowed.
Very cool.
Remember, it's just once you pass a section, you've got to get the other 3 sections done before your 18-month window lapses, or you start losing, each section you passed in that 18-month window, they keep dropping off the backside as you keep pushing your calendar out.
All right, I've got a question along the same lines. If I buy the CPA Excel course now, and I don't plan to take the exam until the end of next year, will I still have access? In other words, is there an expiration date for the course or any additional charges over time?
No. So I think that's a really important thing to point out is with the software technology we drive, that as you, when you sit for the exam and you don't pass, and this is perfect if you look at the world of tax law, if the laws changed in tax next, October, for the upcoming fiscal year or calendar year, ultimately that impacts how your questions on the CPA exam appear. So our students continually get all their content updated, so they're never out of date, and there's no additional fees. All their online textbooks and question databases, everything are continuously kept up to date, so there is no additional fees. It's there until they pass.
Mike, that's a great offer, by the way. I mean, because everybody's on a different timetable,
Right. And by the way, that's the way anybody should be. If your product's good enough, you should be able to support people who have, who have paid for it, and that's the way we look at it.
Leah wants to know, do the Wiley CPAexcel tools for studying contain texts like regular course books we use at the university, or are they all about question samples that we might encounter in the test?
Yeah, the Wiley CPAexcel review course, that's our full comprehensive course. When you initially register, they get a full set of comprehensive hard copy printed textbooks as well. And those textbooks are included in an electronic version in the software as well. Does that answer the question, I believe?
Yeah. I think that answers the question. I think they're saying sort of, is it a long textbook that you read, or is it broken out into lessons?
There's two things. One, we give a hard copy, which is the entire volume. But in each lesson that you go into, each topic, the textbooks are included online, and those cover what we call each bite-sized lesson topic. So if they look at, say, an accounts receivable topic, the textbooks are online, built right into the software, and it is the textbook, but it's it may just be 3 pages which relate to that topic. So online, they're broken down. The textbooks are broken down into bite-sized lessons that match up with the questions, the mentoring, the flashcards. All those topics are grouped together by lesson.
Mike, Cindy wants to know, I know that CPAexcel has an 87% pass rate. Is that the first time pass rate?
Well, unfortunately, we don't necessarily get information from all the students as to when they're reporting back their scores, if that's their first or second, because they could have taken a competing product. I don't know that. All I can tell you is that the pass rates at the firms that we work with, and our product has been chosen as kind of a best-in-class online-offline course by one of the big 4 firms. And their studies have revealed, beyond the 87% first-time pass rates, they're in the 90 percentile. So I feel pretty comfortable that if you're doing what we tell you to do, that your first-time pass rate should be matching up with that type of percentage.
Got it. So what I'd like to do, everyone, is if you still have a question that hasn't been answered yet online, stick around. The 6 of us will continue to answer those questions. There's still a handful, and Mike, I can even assign a couple to you. But let's wrap up the...
Hey, Mike, Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've gotten a few questions, Mike, just to touch on, I guess the course is, if I buy the course now and do not plan to take the exam until the end of next year, will I still have access? Is there an expiration date for the course or additional charges, if you want to address that, Mike?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know if we, well, here, let me go back to a slide here, which I think may address some of that. We, basically, the course is updated until it's no additional repeat fees are required. Jeff, can you answer what were some of the other points they were asking?
Yeah, basically the CPAexcel program, basically once you purchase the CPAexcel program, there is no expiration date, there are no repeat fees. Some of the courses will have some hidden charges. If you need to repeat a section, you have to pay a fee. If you want updated materials, you have to pay a fee. With CPAexcel, we don't do that. And I just wanted to clarify.
So this slide probably, and maybe we can forward this out to students here in the next week or so. This is kind of our brochure that kind of covers some of the points you just mentioned. and that is there is no expiration date. Content is always updated. There's no additional fees. So, that's our policy. You pay once, and that is all you will ever pay for the program. It'll be updated online. All of the apps for all mobile apps is included in the program, so you can work on questions on your iPhone, or you have the same interface on your iPad or Droids, and that's once again online, offline auto synchronization between all of the devices that you would use. So that's all included in the program.
Very cool. Guys, any other last thoughts on your program, and just kind of wrapping up about CPAexcel? And if you'd like to have the last word on that, then we'll turn off the audio, but just continue to answer questions. Mike, why don't you take the last word, and then I'll wrap it up.
Well, I think the final thing I would like to say is that, I've been in this for some 25 years, and it's great to see the technology and the tools that we can now deliver to the students in preparing them for the exam. And I think the guidance that the course offers, and the structure, and all of these metrics and tools and analytics that really help you to guide you to your ultimate goal. I'm just excited that we're able to provide those now to the student. And I am so confident if they just simply follow this program, they're going to pass, and they're going to pass in relatively short order. So I just encourage them to, make the move, start getting ready to prepare for this thing, and jump in. And I think they're going to be just like me. They're going to come home to a garbage can in their living room that's, all their CPA books are going to be dumped in it, and it's a really good feeling. So I encourage you to go for it.
Well, I want to encourage everyone who hasn't had a question answered to stick around. They will get the questions answered for you, and also, Mike, I want to thank you for the work that you've put into this presentation, and also to Julie and Leslie Ann and Vanessa and Jeff for answering the questions. I mean, we still have 30 questions that haven't been answered yet, and I think that speaks to the fact that we need more education about this exam, and I'm just glad to have you as a partner to answer those questions. And
it's our pleasure.
Thank you, and thanks to all the guys and ladies who are on answering the questions. So, for that being said, we will wrap up the audio. Stick around online, guys, until your question is answered. And of course, I sent out an email address for Jeff Johnson at Wiley CPAexcel, and I hope that if you have any other questions, or if your question is not answered, that you'll email Jeff. I'm going to send that email. I'm going to distribute that email again in one moment through the control panel here, just so that you have it. Yeah, there it is. I'm sending that again one more time right now. That way everybody on the call will have it. I do hope that you'll follow up with Jeff if you have any other questions about Wiley CPAexcel's offer, the product, or anything. And then remember, you'll also get information from us tomorrow on some great discounts on this incredible product. Quick housekeeping item for those of you who are on the call. Tomorrow we have 2 events for Meet the Firms Week. At 2 o'clock Eastern, we're going to have a webinar with Deloitte called Essential Skills You're going to Need to Start Your Accounting Career. So while today focused on technical skills and passing the CPA exam, tomorrow talks about how to get in and make an impact inside an organization. And I think nobody knows how to do that better than the recruiting team at Deloitte, and they're going to walk you through that. Then also at 4 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have an information session from one of the leading firms in the southeast United States, Horn. They're a top 100 firm with offices in Mississippi and Texas, and they're going to be talking about a profile of their firm for 30 minutes. We send out an agenda every single day to all of the registered students who signed up for Meet the Firms Week. You'll have instructions on how to register for both of those at that time. So I thought today was a great session, and I thank Wiley CPAexcel for being a part of this, answering your questions with expert and trusted advice, and being so helpful. I want to thank the students for being a part of this as well. If you have any other questions on CPAexcel, you've got the email address for Jeff Johnson. If you need anything from College Frog, you can email Jeff Phillips. Everybody's named Jeff, so we're going to keep things very simple for all of you. CPAexcel team, you guys stick around online, and we'll terminate the call now and the webinar, but if you can stay online and finish answering the questions, we'll finish that work and then let everybody go about their day. Thanks again for participating. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.